let us know last time.
Okay. All right, then I will call the special meeting of the East Helena Public Schools Board of Trustees to order. And the first item is for the board to review the agenda. Are there any questions or comments on the agenda? Seeing none, go to hear the public. Any indication? Okay. Then I will forego, without objection, I will forego hear the public. We'll move on to new business. And the first item under new business is the approval of the special policy committee board being held on August 6th.
And so the minutes were emailed out. I did bring hard copies, you guys, if you want to review them. It's been noted there's a typo. The minutes state that the meeting was Thursday, August 8th, when the meeting was actually Thursday, August 6th, 2026.
Okay. Are there any other questions or revisions on that?
I make a motion to approve the amended minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Martin. Questions or comments from the board?
Does that just vote on those three that are in that committee?
No, I don't think so. We can't
Or is
do
it
that
full
because
board
we need the full board to vote to
Yeah.
make an action.
Yeah, that'll come as a recommendation to us at our next meeting. So,
The
well, actually,
policies.
Yeah, the policy.
Yeah, the policy, yeah. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. And then we go on to the recommendation for employment of staff.
Yeah, so we've had a flurry of hiring going on, so we thought we'd like to get these taken care of tonight, if that's all right, it's a special meeting. There are a couple teaching positions, some activity positions, paraprofessionals, coach and instructional tutor, and Title I teacher and a substitute in the list. You want me to read them off, or?
No, it's not necessary. It's in the agenda.
Yeah.
No math teacher, I see.
No.
So I would entertain a motion to approve the recommendations for the employment of staff.
So moved.
With Brent Tyrells, do I have a second?
Second.
Second for Brandon. Questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the public? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. And now we go on to unfinished business. And the first item under that list is the review and approval of the trustee financial summary.
Okay, and we brought hard copies for everybody. If you need some light reading, they were, the link was posted and emailed out to the trustees last Thursday, I believe. I also forwarded a note from Jane about some of the discussion from last Monday and some things that she adjusted or changed. I didn't know, Jane, if you wanted to elaborate a little bit on the TFS.
You bet. So what I discovered after I went back and did a little research was, I cannot apparently comprehend this report that I was using so for all of the utilities, I just had put the district number in and not by school code. So some of those things are broken down by school code and some are district wide. Once I figured that out, that solved the problem. And then I went back and reviewed every single line to make sure that we had picked up everything else. And the only thing that wasn't on that report, that should have been really, was the teacher's aide salaries. I don't know why. So I'm gonna get a hold of Black Mountain and see if they can't get that fixed, because I'm thinking it might be for everybody. Everybody's probably missing that. Tyrell had asked the question about why we had zeros in some of those from last time. And honestly, it could be if the previous clerk was using this report, some of that information wasn't on there. And so she might not have looked at it line by line. I'm not throwing her under the bus or anything like that. I think it just truly probably was she was still fairly new and could have just missed it that easily. So, but it's all been checked out and those numbers are what they're supposed to be. So we should be good. I'm feeling 100% confident now with our TFS. So.
Okay. Based on the statement of our business manager, in the trustees' review of the financial summary, I would entertain a motion to approve the TFS report.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Sorry. So there was a pretty significant increase, under the general fund, expenditure support services for business. For purchase property services, it was like 13 grand. Do you have any idea what that is?
What page are you on, Tiffany?
18.
$32 to $16.
In which particular line was that? Purchase professional, the 3XX?
4XX under the 25XX support
Oh,
services.
okay, sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Is it curriculum or something like that?
No, it's, I'm trying to think of what we code out of there. Those be like your 440s and stuff. The one contract we have is we have a contract with a guy who plows the high school parking lot because, that's one area that our guys can't get to. But that should have been, that doesn't make sense to me because we didn't have a lot of snow plowing last winter, if you remember.
Yeah.
So we'd have to go back and look
Okay, that's
at that and get back to you.
I can look that
It,
up right
it's
now.
that type of work though that's coming out of there, and it could be, electricians or plumbers, and that we just had a lot more of it one year than the other.
Okay.
For that, maybe trying to keep the chiller. I don't know.
Could be, yeah, it could have to do with, the repair that we did last year and the chiller too. So
Is-
we can dig into those more detailed reports and,
Is that the same with like supplies, materials, which went down by $60,000? Like same kind of.
so supplies and materials is mostly like our, supply lines for the buildings. And what probably happened there was we may have in one year made a large year-end purchase. Because maybe we had some money sitting in there, so we made like the central supply purchase might have been purchased out of year-end funds one year and not the other.
So I realize this is school accounting, not gap accounting, but it seems to me like, and no offense to you, Jean, but like this is pretty worthless. Why do we not have a third year budget comparison for 27 in this TFS so we can look at, I guess why I'm asking is because it seems like a really difficult task to break down all of these subcategories and the expenditures within each of the funds and really like start to pick apart where can we do better and where can we draw funds from to do other things without having those numbers. So
And-
that's where that's where
Yeah.
I found it really difficult. This is great. I can ask questions historically, but that doesn't really do us any good moving forward, especially when it's one-offs like these.
And you're right, it only gives you a year-to-year comparison,
Yeah.
and that is something and that's the format that we get from the state for this document, but this is more, the other thing to keep in mind of a historical report of expenditures rather than
Right.
a map for next year's budget, so,
This map doesn't give any detail.
right, and so we don't.
Especially for the general fund. I mean, there's a little bit in here for the transportation fund and all that, but the general fund, given.
But we don't dig into like line item budgets and board meetings. It's something that the budget committee could review more of, and Black Mountain might have even a 3-year comparison. I don't know, that we might be able to look at.
Okay.
But that's definitely something we can explore in the future, for sure.
Any other questions, comments? I would entertain a motion then to approve the TFS.
Guess I'll move to TFS
I'll second.
begrudgingly.
Motion to approve, second by Tyrell. Additional questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from public? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. So then we move on to the fiscal year 2027 budget review and approval.
And did we adjust anything on here since last week?
Nope. What we sent out should be,
Same as what we looked at in the meeting last, Monday night.
no, it's a new one. I adjusted it all on Wednesday,
Oh,
so everybody should have the new, and you can tell that by looking at the transportation. It was, last week, we had a 1,150,000, and we moved that up to 1,175,000, so this is, the one you guys have should be the current one. Now, the yellow page is last year's information, but in your packet is the current, the budget for 27. Is there something else you think is,
Nope,
That we
that's,
said that?
I remember that we dealt with it a couple days after the meeting last week and I couldn't remember what was adjusted.
Okay, based on Jane's statement and Dan's.
Yeah, there was discussion last week. That's, I didn't know if people had questions, or if you wanted to kind of rehash what we talked about last Monday or anything.
Relative to,
Well, there's some big swings in, the tuition and the transportation budget. We talked about those, multiple times over the year that, those two levies we reduced significantly for fiscal year 2026 because we were running carryover balances in those year over year. And they're obviously very specific funds, what we can use the money for. And it didn't make sense to carry a balance in a fund that was that dialed in. And so last year, we asked the trustees to reduce the local levies in transportation and tuition. Since then, some things that have changed in tuition is we had to start paying tuition to surrounding districts for non-resident students from East Helena that attend those districts. But Jill and I had planned for that and budgeted for that with the recommendation. What we talked about last week was we don't know what the future holds for those tuition payments. We think that with the countywide equalization of mills, those payments will either be significantly reduced or they will disappear entirely, but we're not getting a lot of direction on that. Regardless, we know we have to make tuition payments next year because tuition payments that we make are based on last year's students, just like the way A and B works. So the budget that we have this year is based on last year's enrollment, and that's the way tuition payments work. So even with countywide equalization, it'll take at least a year for that to run out and play out. So once we understand more from the county and the state as to how that's gonna be settled out, by next year, we might be able to draw that tuition levy back down quite a bit. With transportation, we probably were a little too conservative with our local levy and we drew that budget down. We weren't close to zero, but we were down to about 130,000 in there. Instead of reappropriating that for this year, we put that into reserves. The reason we have to have a reserve balance in there is those funds, we have a transportation budget of what Jane said, $1.1 million. That doesn't mean we have $1.001 million in there on July 1st because the money comes into that fund as property taxes get paid. So property taxes get paid in November and May. We see the money in December and June. And so when we set the budget, we need to have something of a cushion in there so that basically our checks don't bounce. And so that's the reason that you want reserves. So that's why we took that year-end amount in transportation and put it into reserves rather than carrying it over towards this year which meant that we were starting this year at $0 for transportation. Then we added some things in transportation throughout the course of last year that we had to account for in the budget. That was a shuttle route between schools. We had to budget for that, so that's an additional bus driver fuel every day. Increased fuel costs because diesel fuel is up about 40% since a year ago, and everything we're reading about it is that it could and is expected to probably go higher regardless of what happens with the war and the Strait of Hormuz. And it just has more to do with global production and refinery capacity for diesel fuel and just the demand that's going on in the world market right now. We rented a shop to do mechanic work, and then we took a part-time employee and made him a full-time employee to work in the shop to do mechanic work. And we anticipate that we'll see significant cost savings with that. But yeah, until we know for sure, we want to make sure that our bases are covered. So that's really where the increase in transportation is coming from. And again, if we do see some cost savings, if we do see some relief on fuel prices, we should be able to be a little more conservative and dial that back again a year from now, but we have to kind of wait and see.
So obviously there's a way to get more granular reporting, correct?
Yes.
So my question is dissemination, like who are we talking to about the budget in a more granular form, and how is that being followed up on?
So we're doing most of that administratively. These budgets are happening because this is what the board has to approve.
I understand.
We
that,
can't
yeah.
permissively levy without board approval.
I understand that, yeah. Yeah, my only thing is we fought for, you know, a $377,000, you know, that we lost.
Right.
And in a $16 million budget, I feel like sometimes you can rob Paul to pay Peter. Is that the opposite? Rob Peter to pay Paul?
There's
Yeah.
potential for shell games, sure, but so the levy was a general fund budget levy.
Right.
Right? These funds that we're talking about, like tuition, there's just so many things that we can do with it, and that's
No,
it.
and I understand that completely. I'm just wondering, like, again, on a more granular level, like, are we looking at how much we're spending on all these subcategories and who's watching them? I mean, obviously, you know, you're watching them, but I'm just wondering, like, how tight we're watching that budget, and when are we entering our actuals versus our budgeted, and
So that's happening every month, and anytime you wanna come in and review those, we can print reports for you.
awesome. Okay.
So, I'm gonna back out a second just because, to make sure I understand, because this is not my area of expertise by any stretch. There's all these different funds. Some of these funds have permissive levies. Would you, and just tell me where I'm wrong.
No, you're right.
My understanding is, there's all these funds, some of these funds have permissive levies, we're allowed to carry some, that's the reserve limit. We don't, after a while, it seems to you that we don't wanna get bumped against that reserve limit, and we don't wanna carry extra, it's not fair to the taxpayers. So we're reducing some of them, but we don't know exactly how much, is that
Yeah.
synopsis?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to make sure I understood. And the big problem is that.
Well, we
this year we're-
places where we might-
reduced them last year, Mark.
This year, we're picking them back up.
So that was
Okay.
fiscal year
Okay.
26 was last year. Fiscal year 27, they're going back.
Well,
up.
we can do that with nothing more than notice, essentially, right?
For your permissive funds, which are transportation, bus depreciation, and bus depreciation is a formula that we have to use. Tuition is a permissive levy. Retirement is set by the county, actually. Adult education is a permissive levy. We don't use a non-operating fund. I don't even know what it's for. The technology is actually a voted levy that's been in place for 20 years. And then the flex fund, we don't levy. You can see there's zeros in there in the district property tax. And then building reserve is a formula that we get from the state that basically gives us $2 for every dollar that we levy. A little more than that, well, a little less than that.
And so the difficult part for me to understand, or for the public to understand, is that we do not have the opportunity, we may have permissive levy authority, but we can't take money from there and put it in the general fund.
Right. You can't do that.
It's not fun.
The other thing that's a little confusing too is when you look at, and we talked about this last week, but I don't know if you remember the number of mills that were actually levying. You know, part of the motivation to dial back those other funds last year was people were in a lot of pain with property taxes.
Mhm.
And so from a school board perspective and a district operations perspective, it's like, if we don't need to levy this $100,000 in transportation, then let's not do it right now because people will need to pay more taxes. But the number of mills that we levied last year was 99 mills. This year, even with the increase in the amount of money that we're levying, it's 80 mills. And the reason was the increase in the taxable valuation of the district. So you see a 20% decline in the number of mills being levied to raise actually more money.
Yeah.
And that's, like we talked about last year, that's just a reflection of some pretty significant commercial projects coming onto the tax rolls, and then just the continued expansion of residential.
And increasing value of that
Yes,
resource too,
Yeah.
so.
And in March, one of the Senate Bill 307 requires us to give notice of potential increases in permissible levies.
Okay.
And so in March, you guys get information on that, and then we have to notice it appropriately. And we're taking a guess then as to what we
Right.
think things might be up or down.
Because I
So
think that changed a little bit, but not much from.
it
our
changed
March
it.
one.
actually
The
changed quite a bit.
tuition
is?
changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and at the time you do that, it's March and you're,
Well, and I understand you're walking
Yeah.
a line between people like me who are like functionally illiterate on this subject, and people like Tiffany were super knowledgeable about it, and so.
Well, it's pretty complicated, and the state hasn't done us a ton of favors in terms of trying to simplify it. I think one of the biggest things about this meeting that's especially difficult for the general public to understand is there are all these funds that have been earmarked and that we manage for various purposes, like transportation. You're required by law to transport students. So the state gives the district a tool to provide that service to the community. And the state also provides a reimbursement to us for the students that we give rides to on our buses, our route students. And then the additional amount over top of that is what we're levying locally to run transportation. I mean, we could, some districts run very Spartan transportation programs where they don't have a lot of activity transportation, or they contract it out, which I think is more expensive. Or they don't give any rides to kids within the 3-mile limit, or do something like a shuttle bus, because we're not required to do that. The reason we asked for that last year and you guys approved it was traffic was insane. And we were under a lot of pressure from parents to try to figure out ways to take cars out of the mix, and moving kids on our buses between schools is one way that we can cut down on the number of stops that parents have to make in the morning, and then the number of vehicles that are coming and going from our schools. So in East Helena, it makes sense for us to do that. In some other districts, it probably doesn't. I don't know if that makes any sense or not.
Good comments. So again, I would entertain a motion to approve the budget as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Motion from Ted Rout. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Martin. Additional questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from you? Sorry to be
The public.
on the spot. Seeing none, public question, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. And that will conclude this evening's meeting of the East Helena Public Schools Board of Trustees.